Hi, ducklings. Today we're going to work on adding descriptive language and sensory details to make our writing come alive. So, the reason why we want to add descriptive language to our writing is so that our story sounds like a story and not a shopping list. Like, we don't want it to be like, first I went to the house, then it was on fire. We want the reader to feel like they can see or experience what we saw or experienced, because that's what's going to get them invested into our story. So I'm thinking about places in my story where I can add either like just simple little descriptions or like full on sensory details to make my reader really feel what I felt and see what I saw as my memoir was going on. So I'm going to kind of skim and look for places where I might just like tell my reader something instead of showing them what it was like. So here's a spot where I already did that. I finally found a spot and ran up just in time to see the flames licking out of front windows. So there's a nice example of description, and that's actually personification because flames don't lick, they're not people, but I'm using that to describe what the flames looked like. You know what though? This place here, I couldn't find a place to park. I think that's something where I could add some more description. So so maybe I'll say, but of course, there was nowhere to park. The entire area was blocked by fire trucks, lined up one after another. So instead of just saying there were tons of trucks, I'm sort of like creating that image in my reader's mind of the line, lined up one after another. Right after the fire, I'd been allowed in for 5 minutes. Took all my clothes to the laundromat. I slept the whole flight, so that's a nice detail. Here we go. Here's another sensory detail, sweat dripping down my forehead. A week later, we were allowed back in. Oh, so I remember that when I was trying to write strong leads, I actually wrote a full descriptive paragraph about this section, about how awful it was when we went back into the house. And you know what? It was awful. It smelled terrible. And so I feel like that's a place where I really want to include that full sensory detail. The smell was unbearable. It was hot and smelled of old smoke, the largest and wrongest campfire of all time. Then I got into the building, up the wrecked wet stairs, singed and covered in broken wood and glass, and into my apartment. So I'm really trying to paint the picture with my words of what it looked like, what it smelled like. Joining the fire smells was rotten food, the fridge left open by the people who had broken in. I might change the detail on that a little bit, but let's definitely add some kids who had broken in and robbed the place. Just a little more detail to make that make sense. So maybe I'll move this up here too. A week later, we were allowed back in. The smell was unbearable. It was hot and smelled of old smoke. Okay. My roommates couldn't take it. Yeah. After a coughing fit, Stared at the bare cement and boarded up windows. There's another sensory detail. So we want to make sure to include sensory details when they make sense, but we also don't want to make our story so long because we're including every single thing. So notice how I'm zooming in and adding that full descriptive paragraph at the part where I really need my reader to understand what it looked like and what it felt like. So for the rest of it, I'm kind of just telling the story, and that's okay because I've kept that description super intense in the part where I really want the reader to feel that moment.